we reach the top of this mountain and we see a temple. They built a temple, Babaji's temple. We got the keys to unlock the door to go into this temple. And I get in there, I just lay down on the floor, and there's this big portrait about 6 foot tall on the wall, painting of Babaji. And I go, oh, this is beautiful. And I just laid down, I'm exhausted. The cave's about another 100 yards away. So we rest. I rest because I'm exhausted. Finally say, okay, let's go to the cave. So we go to the cave, hike up the last 100 yards. It's uphill. Unlock the gate to it. And then my friend says, no, you go in. I mean, this is your thing. You know, he didn't, whatever, you know, go ahead. So I go inside, and there's some blankets on the stone floor. And we sit and we meditate. And first off, when you walk into Babaji's cave, it's like I'm Reverend Bill McDonald, and I'm honored to be a guest on Your Superior Self, even though that may not be reflective of who I am. In my world, you are the superior self, all of us together. No one's more superior than anyone else. So good morning and blessings to you, and I hope you enjoy this conversation that we're going to have this morning.
Reverend Bill, such a natural at speaking, coming in hot. I love that.
I didn't get a chance to comb my hair this morning, though, so I just winging it.
Sure. You look good, brother. You have, man, we had a conversation the other day. I think it was supposed to be like a quick call. It ended up like 2.5 hours just listening to your story. You have this wondrous story, and it's happened. Things have happened to you. Phenomena has been happening to you your entire life. Did it start when you were 8 years old, when you had that first near death?
Well, actually, no. Actually, I was always kind of strangely mystical, magical, fairy tale like from the beginning. It was like I was born into a family, and as a young child, I was meditating as early as I can remember, doing my own thing, making up my own meditations, and communicating with presence and things. So yeah, so I would say 18 months, 2 years, 2.5 years. And then I was having encounters when I was 4 and 5, where me and my two sisters were actually abducted by aliens, beings, uh, people not of this earth, or souls are not of this earth. And that's something we never talked about. Last time that happened to us, we had a missing time thing, and we all disappeared and came back 9 hours, 10 hours later. That was in 1950, and we didn't talk about it ever again until 2004 or 5. If you can believe that. We went 50 some years before we ever breached the subject of talking about that. It was really an interesting thing. And what's even more interesting on this, I wasn't going to talk about UFOs or anything, because that's kind of crazy talk. You're bringing this crazy guy in there. But it's, I went to the VA here a couple of years ago for osteoporosis, and they were, give you a body scan and all that stuff. And it turns out I have some kind of non-metallic implant of some kind next to my forearm, right next to the bone. This little, like you put in a dog or a cat type thing, a little like capsule, non-metallic. They couldn't figure out what it was. They kept asking me if I had shrapnel in there from the war or something. And I go, no, I would know if I got wounded there. I mean, you have to have an opening hole to get something in there. So I have that on, actually, a scan. I took a picture of it. So that was kind of an interesting development. It just happened a few years ago. So other than that, I don't want to talk about UFOs. Let's talk about things more spiritual. Let's go down that road. You alluded to 8 years old. So at 8 years old, I had my first near-death experience. It wasn't my first out-of-body experience, nor was it my first spiritual experience, but it was the first experience where I actually was on that cusp of death and life, where nothing was for certain, and I was facing things that normal 8-year-old child doesn't face. I was deathly sick. I was sent to the San Jose County Hospital in the San Francisco Bay Area. And they took me away from my parents and put me in the hospital and told my parents, my stepdad and my mother, that, it's probably too late. You brought this kid in too late. He's really gone. We don't think he's going to make it. Prepare. And so they dropped me off. They strapped me into a gurney, wheeled me away. And this is the old days, 1950s early, right? Parents went home. I'm 8 years old, 8.5 years old. I'm in the hospital away from home for the first time in my life. And I'm being rolled down a hallway in a hospital, looking up at the ceiling with the lights, coming down, very dramatic. And the only thing I remember is the conversation they had at the distance of about 10 feet away, like I'm not supposed to hear it, right? No, he's probably not going to make it. So that's where I'm going, down the hall and then out of the building into an isolation building they had, and put into a room by myself. And then they did some procedures on my back and withdrew fluids from my lungs. I had a lung disease, a kidney disease. I had mumps. I was anemic, all kinds of stuff. It was like 6 things. It all cascaded and start off with the mumps. And then it just kept cascading till, double pneumonia and then kidney disease and the whole thing. So they operated on me that evening, and they got done. And I'm sitting there in a chair in my underwear, and they take me to the bed and they go to bed. That's it. No hugs. Nobody asks, how you feeling, kid? Are you okay? No, nothing. Just there's the bed. Boom. Turn the lights off. And all of a sudden now at 8.5 years old, away from the home for the first time, I'm in a darkened room. I mean, totally dark. Nobody else. Nothing. No phone. No nothing. No entertainment. All by myself. And so it was a little it was a little, for an 8-year-old, it was a big deal, especially when you think that maybe you're dying or something in the process. So I lay down there, and I'm laying down there, and have great pain. And all of a sudden, there's no pain. There's nothing. It's like, wow, comfortable. It feels like the bed's like I'm laying on a cloud or something. It was just like there's nothing below me. It was a feeling of weightlessness and lightfulness, if I can coin a new term, meaning light was within me, light was around me. I was light weight wise. I was light like enlightened. I was light like glowing. So yeah, I'll coin that term, enlightenedness, or whatever it is. All right. So I'm kind of feeling like I'm floating. And so I look down, but realizing I'm not the body. So I'm just kind of thinking about looking down, and I'm looking down, right? I'm seeing the body below me. And there's this child, kind of crumpled up in the bed, hurting and everything, but just gone. And I'm thinking, well, I feel sorry for that body. That body's hurting, but that's not me. Even at 8 years old, 8.5, I'm looking at it saying, but that's not me. I am not that body. I am this consciousness. Now at 8.5 years old, I probably didn't use the word consciousness. But in that state, I was thinking that and having that meaning, whatever that was, because I knew that I was something more than that body and beyond that body, and that only breath would connect me with that body. Without breath, I'm not that body. That would be the cords that bind you is the breath, right? Odd thoughts for an 8.5-year-old. So I'm kind of floating up above this, and the room gets lighter, and I'm looking around, and it's kind of like I'm in a cloud. I don't know if I can say this because I've, in helicopters in Vietnam when I was flying, I had the doors off my helicopter, and we'd fly through a cloud. Have you ever flown through a cloud? I mean, it's just this fluffy, moist, air. It kind of felt like that. It kind of felt like I was flying through a cloud, although I didn't know that feeling from that point of view at that age. And I'm realizing something unique is happening. and scenes are starting to open up to me, and I'm starting to see like a motion picture. It was like scenes were coming to me. Realize that because you've already talked to a bunch of people that had near-death experiences. Most people, they have a near-death experience, they're normally like 20, 30 years old, teenager, an old person, whatever, and they have a life review. Well, at 8 years old, what are they going to review? I pulled the dog's tail. I teased my sister. I mean, what's to review, right? So there was no life review, nothing going backwards. What I realized by watching these scenes unfold, that I'm having a life preview going forward. And I'm seeing my future wife, who I met in high school, still married. I cautioned her. I was introduced. This is my first wife. After 50 some years, keeps her on her toes. Anyway, so I saw who I was going to marry. I saw my children. I saw where I was going to live. I saw where I was going to work. I saw myself in a war, which turned out to be the Vietnam War, but I didn't know where Vietnam was at 8. Yeah, I don't know Vietnam, but I did know that people shooting at you, and you see guns, and you see aircraft, helicopters. You're in a war zone, and so I saw that. I saw myself sitting on a seat on one of these helicopters behind a machine gun, and firing it. And I saw people shooting at me, and I saw people getting killed and dying. I actually saw spirits leaving their bodies and stuff. It was really weird. It was looking forward at this war. I could actually see when people actually got killed and left their body. It's an interesting thing how you separate. Not much different than I was going through myself, but it was like, oh, and realize that, well, there's this battle and people are getting shot at and blown up, but really nobody's dying. Their bodies are mutilated, they're destroyed, but the consciousness of these, the who these people were still exists, right? Their personal identity with their own consciousness and with the greater consciousness still exists. So that was interesting. I saw who I believed was the president of the United States getting shot in Texas. And I saw this whole thing playing out. Now, whether what I saw was true or not is debatable, because the Warren Commission report doesn't jive with what I saw. So let's just put it that way, that I could be wrong, but I did see the president getting shot, and I saw more than one person. So it's like, what's going on here? So we have to believe our government, though, right? So I will let it go at that. And later on, when I was in high school, I 2 or 3 weeks before the assassination, I told the principal and some people and stuff that it was going to happen, and they go, yeah, okay, great. And then when it happened, people go, oh. Nothing worse than giving predictions of the future that are tragic or disastrous to people, and then when they see it happen, they get, instead of being grateful or what else do you know, it's like they get spooked. Anyway, we talked about that. It happened to me in Vietnam. So anyways, I saw all these things unfolding and happening, and it went on and it went on and it went on for 5 decades, about 50 years. And it's not that I remembered everything that I saw, but just before these things would happen, or near close to the time they're happening, there's like this instant deja vu. Oh, deja vu. Okay, I know what's going to happen now. Okay, yeah. So it was like not waking up fully aware of the whole picture, but when you get there, yes, you are. It was like, but there were certain things that stood up, like the Kennedy assassination and being in the war. I mean, you just can't erase that from your mind. That's too big of a karmic event. So that's going to be there for you. But little incidences. So, and I kind of wondered, because people have these little deja vu movements, and I wondered if they had some kind of glimpse forward that they don't recall and don't remember, but just as they get there, or just as they do it, it's like, oh, wait a minute, I'm doing this again. No, you're not doing it again, but you probably had an exposure to it in a dream, a vision, or in a deep sleep or a meditative state. Maybe you kind of knew this was coming already, and it's just a replay. So hope you get it right this time, kind of thing, right? So anyway, so I went through that. I don't know how long this lasted. this experience. Could have been minutes, could have been hours, but all of a sudden I'm just there and I'm feeling like, well, I realize as I'm looking at these future scenes, I'm going, well, I got a future. That means I'm not dead or not going to stay dead. Stay dead's more of it, right? I'm not going to stay dead. I got to go back because I got a wife waiting for me and a child. I mean, I'm 8.5 years old, but I got all these things waiting for me. I got all this happening. So then the good news, the bad news is I'm going back. and I know I'm going back into this body. It's in pain. It's sick. And so there's that, well, I'm going back and it's not a happy and it's not a sad, but it was like a resignation. It's like, I got to do this because it wasn't just about me. Because I'm looking at all my stuff. I'm apparently one of these guys that is very involved with other people. I'm an integral part of other people's lives and their journey, and I add my value to their life as best I can and assistance whenever I can. As we were talking just before we recorded here, I mean, I spent the last several hours this morning, and now it's sun just came up here where I'm at, California. So I get up at 2, 3 in the morning so I can work with people in India and Australia and Germany and all these places. And by the time 6 or 7 o'clock rolls around, I'm ready for the East Coast, right? Have breakfast, have a little hot chocolate. So my mornings are spent there for others. And so even at 8.5 years old, I realized that's kind of my destiny. I got to go back. It was like, maybe I don't have a choice, but if I had a choice, I would go back. So it was like I was resigned to it, knowing that pain and things awaited me, wars, turmoil, illness, all kinds of stuff awaited me in the future. I went back. And when I mean I go back, it's like this, it's like you're jumping on a trampoline and you're up in the air and you're weightless, and all of a sudden, boom, you hit the trampoline and it's cement. It's not a trampoline anymore. It's just, oh, here I am. I'm back in the body. So it's like, boom, and all of a sudden you went from featherweight to 2 tons. The body really weighs down the soul. I mean, you can, when you're in a body, there's a weight versus lightness, right? There's really a weight. And so I was laying back in the body, and that was my first night in the hospital of almost 1 year. 1 year, and I use the word incarceration. 1 year's incarceration in a hospital for a child. Spent most of the time isolated. Once in a while, I'd have a roommate or two, but most of the time, totally by myself. No television, no toys, no magazines, no coloring books, no iPhones or even a phone connected to a wire. No phones, no communication, nothing, no school, nothing. And you would think that that'd be a terrible thing, and it probably, looking back at it at the time, it was kind of heavy because they would come in and wake me up at 6 o'clock in the morning when they changed the shift. New nurses come on board, and they'd wake you up and they'd make you eat and they'd bathe you and all this stuff. I was on total bed rest. And then you'd see them for lunchtime, and you'd see them. The only time you'd see somebody, only time an adult would talk to you is when they came in to give you a shot, take you for treatment, cut you up, do something. So otherwise, there was no conversation. So I'd go a whole day with no conversation other than yes, no, roll over, do this, just instructions. So I utilized that time to go literally within. Now, you got a couple choices. It's like somebody in solitary confinement, and I've read about this from POWs, and I've read about this from guys in prison, and and all kinds of. I mean, being isolated and alone away from people either can do one or two things. Either drives you stark crazy mad, okay, or you turn totally within and it becomes like a meditative state. The great expanse of quiet, this vast nothingness. You have to be nowhere, do nothing, no responsibilities. All you have is a power of your imagination to visualize your future, to visualize the divine within you, to visualize love, to become one. And even at 8.5 years old, it's crazy. Like what 8.5-year-old even goes down that road, right? But I started laying there, had all day, nothing else to do. I mean, 6 in the morning until 9 o'clock at night when they turn the lights off. That's a long day of doing nothing. I'd sit there and I'd visualize the world, myself, love, things, and just get deeper and deeper and deeper in communication with my ultimate self. Who am I? I mean, it's 8.5 years old. Who am I? Why am I here? What's the purpose? No 8.5-year-old asks themselves this question, right? It's like, where's my chocolate? Where's my toys? Where's my friends? No, this is like, no. Why am I here? Meaning here, right? Laid in that bed. What's the purpose? Why am I going through this? I realized this is the ultimate monk training. I mean, if you're going to be a monk and you're going to be in an ashram or a monastery, this is it. Perfect isolation, right? I'm away from everything. I can become a monk. And that's what I basically did, laying in bed. And I made up these techniques. Like I'd take my fingers and I'd push them on my eyelids so they would focus on the center of my head, spiritual eye. I didn't know what it was, but I did. Oh, I can see colors if I do that. There's colors and there's something kind of round looking. And then, man, if you concentrate on it, you can go through that round colored thing and wow. And then there's stars and blue and gold and you're feeling wonderful at the time. You go, wow, that works. And I close off my ears so I couldn't hear any sound in the hospital. And so I was closing my ears, pushing my eyes, focusing there. Then I noticed I would be hardly breathing. And then I would focus on my breath. I go, wow, let's play with that, right? And then I was laying there and I started making something up, which it wasn't until, this was like 1955 or something, it wasn't until 2004 when I was in the Himalayas where I met a Tibetan monk who didn't speak English. We spent 3 days together communicating, saying nothing, but he taught me more than I'd learned from anybody else ever, technique-wise. And he finds me in this village. He takes me and he shows me how to do this technique where you're breathing through your navel and then you're bringing the energy up and down the spine. And I'm going, I was doing that in bed. I was visualizing, breathing through my navel. I'm going, so I thought I'd made it all up. And then this guy comes along 50 years later. 50 years later, I realized when I'm taught this technique in the Himalayan mountains that it was really a Tibetan technique. It was really there was really a method. I didn't know. So I was doing all these crazy things laying in bed and learning so much. Now, the one thing I probably left out, the most important thing I probably left out about this experience, and everybody that has near-death experience, I think everybody that has near-death experience, they all mention love. And I can't let it go without saying that, yes, greatly loved, embraced is it's kind of a cosmic embrace. It's like, I had an Italian grandmother, right? It's like you got 1 million Italian grandmothers that all want to pinch your cheek and hug you, It's like, hey, I need some more pasta, But it's like 1 million grandmothers love you, right? So if God was anything at that age, I'm thinking, oh, God's an Italian grandmother, man. He loves you, right? So there's that quality of love. And even though I was basically a guinea pig at this hospital, they tried out all kinds of things on me and experimented on me and cut open my body to check on things. I mean, my parents signed these waivers where they could do anything they wanted to me since I was a ward of the county. And they were trying experimental drugs. They were trying experimental little tiny surgeries, crazy stuff, right? So I'm kind of like a guinea pig. So no anger, no hate. I wasn't even depressed. It was like, it's all training. And when I went through all this great pain, I learned to handle it. No crying. There's no crying in baseball. Well, there's no crying in the hospital either, right? It's like, come on. I learned to endure, but not endure like, but to endure with inner love. You just let it go. You go with it. You don't fight it. So I started learning about pain management at that age. Like, too many people, when they have pain, especially back pain or eye pain or something that really is obvious, tooth pain, they focus on it too much. They're always thinking about it and they're fighting it. That's where I learned fighting pain only gives strength to it. It's like hate your enemies, you weaken you strengthen them. So love your enemies, whether it's cancer, whether it's disease, whether it's somebody carrying a weapon, whatever it is, love your enemy. And you start by loving yourself. That's another whole focus of my life that went on. But at 8.5 years old, that was going on. So something else, my parents were taking, or my mother was taking lessons in the 1940s, early 50s. She had all these lessons from Self-Realization Fellowship, which better known as SRF, which is the organization that Paramahansa Yogananda organized, founded in America and in the West. He was this great guru, came from India in 1920 to America, and he established himself, and he taught a meditation technique called Kriya Yoga. And at the time, nobody knew what it was here. They didn't know what he was talking about. And he wrote a book in 1946, the year I was born, introducing Babaji to the world. Now, Babaji, in the Western world, nobody knew what he was talking about. I mean, and he couldn't really describe the great energy, the greatness, the vastness of this being. So he just kind of said, oh, he's an avatar, kind of soft sells it. But Babaji has been around, and it is said in India, and it's said elsewhere, that all the great masters learned this meditation technique from him, including Jesus, Krishna, Buddha, all these people. He came to them and he taught them this ancient technique. So apparently, this is one of the only books I ever read at that age, 8, 9 years old, 10 years old. I had parts of it read to me, but I started reading it. And I read the chapter in this autobiography just before I went to the hospital. And it was about Babaji's cave. So apparently in the 1800s, this magic meditation technique, Kriya Yoga, was lost to the masses. And only the greatest masters knew about it. It was lost, basically. Nobody was teaching it. But Babaji came and he appeared to one of his disciples, a man named Larry Mush. And he did this in the Himalayan mountains. He called him to this cave, and he had the guy remember the relationship, and he woke him. And it was a beautiful story about this cave and all this wonderful stuff that happened. So I'm laying in the hospital. I'm going, yeah, I'm going to that cave. I'm going to Babaji's cave. Well, it took me 50 years to the month, and I ended up Babaji's cave. We'll talk about that. Meanwhile, I finally, after a year, get out of the hospital. While I was in the hospital, I was remembering my mother's lessons, and I was practicing these recharging exercises, but I was in bed rest. I couldn't get up, stand up, walk around, do all these things. So I just basically laid in bed and I did these dynamic tensions. In other words, if you're like, pretend like you're lifting a 500-pound weight, right? And you just do that. It's like imaginary weights, but your mind and your muscles are all like they're lifting it. So all this energy is going in there. And I thought, well, he developed these exercises for people to prepare themselves to meditate. And my thought process then was, there's more to it than that. These exercises are changing the energy and the frequency, the battery within you. So you're going to be able not only meditate, but you have this power. There's an energy. it's more than just meditation. And so I had a chance to test that first week or two out of the hospital. I got home, and first thing I told my mother, I said, I had these visions and stuff, and I got a feeling that if I don't change my diets and watch my lifestyle, I'm not going to be I'm going to be out of here because I want to be. So I became a vegetarian, and this is like the 1950s. You got to realize in the 1950s you couldn't go to any fast food place, restaurant, grocery store. You couldn't find vegetarian meals anywhere, and I'm the only vegetarian in the family, so nobody's going to cook anything special for me. So it was a lot of pasta and a lot of rice and a lot of carbs. But it was like I made up my mind that I got to take care of myself. I saw from this future trip I took that I needed to take care of myself, and I kept seeing in that vision that I had when I had the near-death experience, I kept seeing two numbers, and they were tumbling. All these visions going on. These two numbers would just tumble through the vision. It was a 29, and then the 2 would flip over to a 5. You take a 2 and you turn it up. It's 59, 29, and I'm going 59, 29. So at the time when I came home, I was thinking, well, maybe if I don't take care of maybe 29, maybe I'm going to die or get close. Maybe 59 is my limit. I don't know. So I thought, so that just kind of put that back in my mind. But meanwhile, I became a vegetarian, and I was watching my diet and everything, and then, not that I didn't try to get there sooner, but it took me literally 50 years. Eventually, I end up in 2004. We're going to skip past the war and all that. We'll go back to that if you wish. But I'm just trying to keep you on track on this near-death stuff. 50 years later to the month, I end up in India with a friend, and we're traveling all over the place, and I want to find Babaji's cave. Not really well advertised where it's at. I mean, you can go through groups thing, but I figured out the general area, and we went looking, and I hired a driver and a car, and we went to the foothills of the Himalayas, and went to this ashram, and we found the ashram that actually takes care of Babaji's cave. It's actually there. It's preserved. And now it's protected. They got an iron gate on it, like a jail cell. It's got bars because people were going inside and chipping rocks from the inside and selling rocks from Babaji's cave or taking a souvenir. I mean, it's sacred, but it doesn't stop people from wanting to have a piece of it in their altar, or to take it home or something. So anyway, so I end up at this ashram 2004, and we've been traveling for months to find this place. And it's cold. It's in November. It's cold. And I'm staying in a room that has no glass windows. It's got screen and no glass. And we're talking about the Himalayas, right? So in November, it's cold. And I'm laying on a bed that's wood planks, wood. And then they got a pile of blankets. And I used about 3 of them under me, because I'm on the hardwood, right? And then every blanket, they had to put this pile on top of me, right? And then they had a bucket of water for my shower and for my personal needs in the morning, right? So they gave me a bucket of water and sitting there by the edge of the bed. I get up in the morning, and there's like 3 inches of ice on top of the bucket. It's like, oh, that's going to make a good shower, right? Anyway, the fun of living in an ashram or a monastery, right? So I come down and I have a beautiful breakfast with the monk, the Swami that's running the place. Everybody's gone. They're all gone to a spiritual event. And he says, there's nobody around. He says, nobody could take me to the cave because all the people that do that were at this event. So I wasn't going to be able to go to Babaji's cave. And I go, no. I says, I've waited 50 years. I've dreamt about it. I visualized it. I waited 50 years. I don't know if I'm ever coming back here again. I want to go see it. The guy goes, well, he says, okay. He says, well, I'll give you directions. If you can follow it and find it, more blessings to you. He says, but everybody needs a guide. Nobody finds it on their own. I said, give me the directions. So he sits down, he takes out a piece of paper and a pencil, and he chicken scratch. I mean, literally, it's just like he goes, well, you go outside here, go down 2-3 blocks, the main road someplace there, turn, I don't know what direction it is, but I think it's left, Maybe go down 4 or 5 miles, then you turn on this other road, and then go down, you'll pass a bunch of roads. Then you'll come to the road you think it's probably it. That's not. You go to the next one, then you turn left on that. Yeah, left, he says. Yeah, I think it's left. Yeah. And then go down there and there's several roads. Well, take the one that you think is the right one. It's probably the first one. It could be the last one. And then go down that road and stop and then get out and then look for this path and there'll be a sign. That's the instructions I have. And my friend's going. And the driver with me is kind of going. And I go, give me the keys to the place. I'll find it. And the guy goes, okay, just be back by 5:30 that night because I'm locking up. I need my keys and everything, and gonna lock you out. I said, okay. So we leave early in the morning. We go down, and I'm going down the road, and my driver's going. I go, no, turn here. No, yeah, no. Turn here, turn. We end up on this road. I figure I'm just following my instincts, right? This is good as any place else, right? So we get out, and the driver, he ain't gonna go on this, wild chase. He just says, I'm sleeping. He, lays on the seat and he's gonna sleep and rest while we're gone. So normally it takes, I don't know, 50 minutes, an hour maybe to get to this cave. But this is going to be an ordeal, as it turns out. First off, we get out and I see the sign. Oh, this is the right road. Here's a sign. But somebody had picked it up and uprooted it and thrown it on the side of the road. So it was laying there with an arrow going this direction, but it's laying on the ground. So we didn't know exactly. There was like 10 trails. So because it was cow trails and people trails and community trails. So we knew we were in the right area. It was one of these 10 trails. So I think that's close enough. Right? It's one of these. Find something that's going up towards the top. So about 4 hours of hiking. So we're about 3 hours behind schedule. I'm hiking. I'm sweating. And I was kind of worried about it. Then all of a sudden I wasn't sweating anymore. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm okay. I'm not sweating anymore. Yeah, okay. That's real smart thinking, right? Stop sweating. All right. And I was suffering from dysentery. First several weeks in India, I lost 26 pounds in 3 weeks. So, I was not feeling too good. And at the time I was having heart problems and I was having seizure problems, from the war, from an injury I had, got blown up. So I was having all kinds of medical issues. And as we're hiking up this mountain, my heart's going boom, boom, boom. I mean, it's just pounding, right? I mean, if you look down, you could probably see my shirt going like that, right? It was just bad. And I'm getting, lightheaded and everything. But we keep going. Finally, we reach the top of this mountain and we see a temple. They built a temple, Babaji's temple. We got the keys to unlock the door to go into this temple. And I get in and I just lay down on the floor. And there's this big portrait about 6 foot tall on the wall, painting of Babaji. And I go, oh, this is beautiful. I just laid down. I'm exhausted. The cave's about another 100 yards away. So we rest. I rest because I'm exhausted. Finally say, okay, let's go to the cave. So we go to the cave, hike up the last 100 yards. It's uphill. Unlock the gate to it. And then my friend says, no, you go in. I mean, this is your thing. He didn't, whatever, go ahead. So I go inside and there's some blankets on the stone floor. And we sit and we meditate. And first off, when you walk into Babaji's cave, it's like, when you're looking in the desert and there's kind of like wavy lines, it's, when you look in the distance, the road, and it has that wavy line kind of feeling when you walk in. It's kind of like other dimensional. It's a void within a void. You're there, but you're not there. It's a unique feeling. And of course, if you've been looking to go there for 50 years, a lot of that is you building up that, hey, here I am. There's that excitement. But I think if you're really an open-hearted soul, receptive, and your energy is right, you will feel it instantly when you walk in there. It's so powerful. You could taste the air. You could touch the air. I mean, it's like the air was almost like liquid in there. It was like, wow. Anyway, so we get in there, we're sitting down there. And then I wrote this list. Before I left for India, I figured, I got a lot of friends and a lot of people I know and a lot of people I've met in my life that they could use a blessing of Babaji. And so I sat down on my computer, took the smallest indicia I could find, 8 or 10, whatever it was, and I wrote 4 pages, both sides printed out, single space, name of everybody I ever remembered meeting, or teachers, people in the military, hitchhikers I picked up, people I worked for, friends, enemies, neighbors, high school buddies, everybody I could think of. I mean, I had hundreds of names on this thing, 4 pages. And I figured I'm going to go into Babaji's cave and offer these names to Babaji and have him bless them, right? So I'd kind of mentally look over the list and read them and mentally. I mean, I had things on there like hitchhiker I picked up in 1990. Well, God knows who that is. I don't remember the guy's name. I remember his face, but I figured God knows what I'm talking about. And the man in Vietnam that I saw, fall down and get killed, right? But I remember him. And so I just put down the man I remember, Nam, falling down. So some of the things were no names, but it was like, no, everybody's going to get a blessing, including some people that been outright enemies to me. I figured they need a blessing more than anybody. So I went through that. And what's interesting is I'll skip ahead here a little bit. The rest of that journey, I took that list with me to all these sacred places in India until I ended up in Varnasa in the Ganges River. At sunrise, I hired a boat. We went out on the boat in the darkness and the sun came up. And as the sun was coming up, beautiful sunrise, because the pollution is so bad there, and the air looks so neat, when the sun shines through pollution, it's orange and red, and red, there you go, right? Favorite colors. It has all these beautiful colors over the water, right? And you're in this little boat. Took the list out, I read it, I held it by the corner. I took a match and I incarcerated it. I just incinerated it, and then just ashes, and they just fell into the river. And so it was the end of my list. So anyway, it was kind of a proper burial for these things. It did it. I had prayers for it. I took it all these sacred places and then dispersed it into the Ganges and let it flow down to Calcutta. So meanwhile, back in the cave, the clock is ticking away. We're getting late in the day. So we finish our meditation. We lock everything up. We go back. And I'm trying to lead the way back. I have no idea where I'm going. And I'm so zoned out from having spent that time in the cave that I'm in my own little world, right? I'm just kind of walking spaced out, right? Like, spaceman, come back to Earth, right? But I'm just kind of walking. And my friend finally goes, we've been walking 2 hours, we're higher up than we were before. This is crazy. So we're standing there, and I'm standing next to a cliff, 30-foot cliff. It didn't go straight down, but it went down, and then there was like a little outcropping, and then down a little outcropping, and then it ended with a big boulder on the bottom about the size of a Volkswagen Bug. If you can remember what those were like. I don't know if anybody drives anywhere with those anymore, but in my days, Volkswagen Bugs were everywhere, right? So I say, Volkswagen Bug. Oh, yeah, we know what you're talking about. Young people, I go, well, just like a big rock. Okay. So I'm standing there, and my heart is going, boom, boom, boom. I pass out, I black out, boom. I fall down 30 feet. Apparently, I bounced a couple times. I'm laying on this boulder at the bottom of this cliff, looking up on my back, where to fall. So I'm laying there initially in real heavy pain, and then no pain. And I go, whoa, wait a minute. I've had this feeling before. Great pain, no pain. I'm having that lightness feeling again. I'm going, oh, I've been there. I've done that 50 years ago, almost to the day. I bet if I had a calendar, it probably was to the day. I don't know, because I didn't know exactly what day it was the first place, but it was like, no, this is 50 years ago. Wow, 50 years. Maybe this is where I ended. So there's thoughts kind of going through my consciousness. And as I'm having these thoughts, I realize there's no pain, no heartbeat, no pulse, no nothing. I'm not breathing. I'm not in the body. I'm consciously looking down. I don't know if I'm physically looking down because I'm not in the physical. It's just consciousness escaping, right? I'm looking down and I see the body and I go, wait a minute, there's that old funky body again, man. Feel sorry for that body just as much as I felt sorry for my child's body, right? That's not me. Same thought process, same conversation I had 50 years prior, same conversation. And then I kind of focus on the ledge above the body, and my buddy's looking down like, oh, what's going? He doesn't see me moving down there, right? So I'm just loving it. I'm feeling once again the Italian grandmothers come and get me, right? It's like the great love, right? It's like, wow, this is beautiful. And my thought was, if that's it, I'm okay. I mean, I've been to Babaji's cave. That's what I dreamt about when I was in the hospital. Every day in the hospital, I visualized going to Babaji's cave, going to Babaji's cave, going there and get the energy. And there I was. I've accomplished it. So, hey, what more do I need, right? I'm 58 and a half. I'm almost 59, right? So it's a good life. And then I'm looking down or focusing, looking down. So I don't have eyes. I mean, when I say look down or I see, or it's only a manner of speech. So you know what I'm focusing for my consciousness is on my body. I'm looking down there and I see this large cobra head coming out of the grass. I mean, big cobra, and it's going across my ankles and my feet. And I get so excited, not fearful, excited, like with love, like, wow, I love that animal. I love that snake. I love it. And so it was like the cosmic ER team came and said, clear, and put those little defibrillators on your heart and you go, boom. It was like my soul just got like this defibrillator shock. Chunk. And I'm back in the body, but I'm not mad. I'm in the body. I instantly jump up and with great love, I start grabbing this cobra. And I'm trying to grab the cobra and it's slithering through my hands. I got my hands like this, trying to connect, like that around the snake. I can't. It's like this. I can't touch my fingers on either side. And it's slithering through and slithering and slithering and slithering. First time I told the story, the snake was like 6, 7 feet. And I think the last time I told this a couple weeks ago, my wife got mad at me. She says, God, you got this thing up to a king cobra now. It's 17 feet. I said, well, it was huge. I don't know how huge it was. But if it was crawling on your feet, it's huge, man. Come on, give me a break. Typical Irishman, right? It keeps growing. Anyway, but it was a large snake. But it was coming from the grass, tall grass, going across my body, and then into another section of grass. So I never saw the beginning and the end of the snake. It was just slithering. And so with my sandals on, my bare feet, right, and t-shirt on, and of course, everywhere I go in India, I wear my Indiana Jones hat, so I've got a hat on, so I'm chasing this. That's funny. I fall off the cliff, and I still got my friggin' hat on. Look. That's the first time I thought about that. I still had my hat on. I mean, it's just like in the movies. That hat's still on, right? So I chase this snake through this 2-foot grass, and it goes in this little creek, and the creek goes to a little tiny hole where there's a little trickle of water, a little waterfall that's, I don't know, 8, 9 feet drop, and it just trickles down, not much of a force. And the snake goes up and crawls behind the little waterfall, curls up, and then comes up in that posture, with the head, with the hood, with the tongue coming out, it's just like, and it's just me and the cobra, eyeball to eyeball. I'm just looking at it, just looking at me. And it wasn't, don't dare, don't doubt. It was no threat. It was just time to go. Peace, my brother. It's like, it's peace, it's all right. And so I'm there and I'm thinking, as I'm looking at the snake and I'm looking at the waterfall and the creek, and then I realized that part of the story from Autobiography of a Yogi, where this Larry Masha, Babaji materialized his last karmic wish. He wanted, somehow in his past, he wanted to have his palace, to live in a palace And so Babaji read his mind and said, here's your last karmic thing, Here, I'm materializing this palace. Here's this golden palace, enjoy it for the night. And then he dissolved it, right? And when he dissolved it, he told him, go down to the waterfall, the creek, wash up and cleanse. And in other words, you have a great spiritual experience. It's the old thing in India. You go tell the guru, I had samadhi. And the guru just pats you and says, go sweep the porch, chop the firewood, fetch water. In other words, just let it be. It just happened. Great, it's happened. Move on. So that was the kind of feeling I had. I thought, I wonder if this is the spot where that happened. The thought came to me. I'm thinking, nobody's found it. Nobody knows where it's at. I couldn't find it today because I was lost, fell into it. And I'm looking at him saying, this is that spot in the book that nobody knows where it was at, right? This is it. So finally, my buddy gets worried and everything. So he says, let's follow the water down. The water's going to take us down to a house or something, right? To town or something. So we go down, we find a village farmer. He has his kids. We offer his kids some money. He say, hey, help us find our car. Well, all the people around there at the little villages, they saw these crazy Westerners climbing Lost and everything. So everybody knew about where we were at. They knew where the car was at. They had no trouble, finding the car. We get back in the vehicle. We drive back. Just as the guy's closing up the ashram, remember, be back by 5:30. I'm closing it up. So I get there and he smiles at me, the Swami, and he goes, did you find it? And I go, yeah. And I proceed to tell the whole story about falling down. I mean, my shirt's torn. It's got stains from dirt. I got bruises on the arms. I look beat up, and I'm all sweaty, cold, frozen. I mean, it's cold down. I just had a t-shirt on, no jacket, no nothing. And so I tell them the whole story. And there's this woman listening that was from Alaska. And she kept interrupting and said, don't you know what they say? And I go, fine. I just go, all right. What do they say? She says, it is said that those that have the most arduous journey to Babaji's cave have the greatest blessing. And the Swami looks at me and he says, I've never heard anybody have more of a hard time going to the cave in my life. And he laughed, right? He walked away, right? And I go, yeah. So that was cool. So now let's go forward. Let's connect 2959. Remember that from that first near-death experience. So a normal human being, not a guy, guys are not like that, but like my wife, if she would have had a heart attack falling off a cliff, first place she would have been to ER. I mean, she would have got checked up and let's look at this, right? Not a guy, not me for sure. This happened in November. Wasn't until end of January, like first day of February or something, that after falling down, having more heart attacks at home, once I got home, I go, maybe I need to go to the doctor, right? So I got home right before Thanksgiving. And then in December, I did go to the doctor because all of a sudden I had this growth right on my spiritual eye, a tumor. I go in and the guy goes, hey, I got to operate on this right away. No, we'll do it right now. Boom, boom. They cut out 9 stitches, 10 stitches, whatever it was. I had cancer in my spiritual eye, between the eyes, right? And I was going, that is so friggin' cool. I go to India for this spiritual thing, right? And I come back and they've removed cancer from my spiritual eye. I said, what kind of symbolic thing is that? I mean, is that cool, right? My wife's going, you're friggin' nuts, man. You're nuts, right? It's crazy, right? So anyway, I'm having this full-blown heart attack at home. I mean, I've had heart attacks before. I've had them in Machu Picchu. I've had them in India. I've had them in Germany. I've had them, you name a place, I've had a heart attack. All right. So, yeah, okay, that's just a heart attack. So I finally tell my wife, I go, I'm not feeling so good. I think I'm going to go down Kaiser, get my HMO, and I'm going to get checked out. I'll be back a little later. Well, I'm telling her that while I'm having a full-blown right-on heart attack. I mean, things are going on crazy. I get in my pickup truck with my 5-speed shifting and drive 7-8 miles down the highway, having a full-blown heart attack. And I get to ER parking lot's full, and I don't pull into the part where the ambulance goes because I think, I'll walk in, right? So I end up parking about 2 parking lots away. It takes you 10 minutes to get back. I get in there and there's 18 people ahead of me because I counted them. There was 18 people in line. I get in the line. Takes a long time. Even if it only took 1 minute each person, that's 18 minutes, right? So I get up there, and the first question she asked me, what do you think the first question that Kaiser or a hospital would ask you? You think, what's wrong? That'd be a good start, right? How you feel? First question, do you have insurance? Not, are you dying? Are you bleeding? Can you breathe? It's like, do you have insurance? And I go, yeah. Okay, take this. Then still didn't ask. Take this clipboard, go over there, fill it out, and then get in that line. Okay, it's going wrong. This thing is going crazy, right? I go over and fill out 3 pages. And then one of the last things says, why are you here? And I put, I'm having a heart attack. So I get in the line, there's 8 people. So it's about 10 minutes I get up there. Nurse takes the clipboard, looks at it, and she gets down to the part where I said that, and she goes, so you think you're having a heart attack? And I go, no, I know I'm having a heart attack right now. She goes, how long have you been having it? And I said, I don't know, an hour, maybe 45 minutes. How'd you get here? I told her. Drove, you parked over there? Yep. And stood in that line? Yeah. She says, oh, okay. Let me take a listen. I'll be the judge of this. So she puts stethoscope on her. All of a sudden, her eyes go like this, and it's like I was at Kmart. Remember Kmart with the blue light special? Lights go on. Anyway, next thing I know, they're bringing a gurney out. They're strapping me to a gurney. They're rolling me out. There's lights and I don't know, some kind of code, something. And so I'm being wheeled away, and she's going, "Sir, you're having a heart attack." And I said, "Yes, that's why I came in here." And I'm just like this. Yes, I know that. That's what I said. She says, "No, but you're really having a heart attack." And I go, "Yes." She just couldn't believe it because I'm just like this, and I walked in, stood in line, felt. So then I get her, and then the doctor, he's like, oh, we got to do all this stuff. And so I started complaining to the doctor. I never complained. This time I did. I go, I've been a vegetarian for about 6 decades. I don't do alcohol. I don't do drugs. I don't smoke. I don't do sugar. I don't add sugar to nothing. I don't add salt to nothing. I do meditation. I exercise. What? What? And he looks at me and he looks at my charts, from the hospital and everything and my medical records. And he goes, sir, Mr. McDonald, he says, looking at your charts and looking at your genetics and your history, he says, I would have thought you'd been dead by 29. He says, and now looks like a couple of weeks here, you're going to be 59. And then it hit me, 29, 59. So basically he was telling me, had I not had a clean life and, if I was still eating the meat and all the stuff and doing drugs, I'd been gone at 29 because the body just wasn't right for it or something. It was an odd thing for him to say. I don't know how he could make that conclusion, but he did. It was like divine words on his tongue or something. So then I go, 29, 59. So at 29, I avoided that pitfall. It was a change point in my life, but I avoided real bad disease or something. And then I remembered back, I was born in San Francisco's St. Mary's Help Hospital, which since I've been born, they dropped help on it. It doesn't need help anymore. It's just St. Mary's, I think. But anyway, and I found a guy that was born when I was in the 4th grade, 40 miles south of San Francisco in my class, had birthday the same day as me. Paul O'Brien, another Irishman. Paul H. O'Brien Jr. meets William H. McDonald Jr., right? 2 Irishmen, 2 juniors. Turns out he was born in the same hospital, same day, an hour apart. I'm going, wow. So we found that out in the 4th grade. We just happened to run at each other in the same classroom, right? What's the odds? So we find out our mothers were together in the same room. We were in the same baby thing, the bassinets next to each other. And that was kind of cool. But then I kept thinking, before I went to the hospital, when I first got back, I thought, well, if there's anything to astrology, anything at all to astrology, I wonder what happened to him, because he didn't have a good diet. He smoked, he did drugs, he did alcohol, he gambled, he had a whole different lifestyle. He stayed up late. I mean, I was a clean genes and he was just the opposite side of the coin, right? And I thought, well, same birth. So I called up my reunion committee for the high school. I said, this next reunion, I'd really like to see Paul O'Brien. Is he coming? They go, oh, Bill, Paul O'Brien died this year. He didn't even make 59. He died at 58. Didn't make 59. So I'm in that hospital and this guy going, reminding me of the fact that I'm going to be 59. And I'm thinking, well, Paul O'Brien, born same day, an hour apart, he's dead. He didn't make 59, right? So I'm thinking, that didn't make me really comfortable going into the procedure. So anyway, so I think they gave me, it wasn't too bad. That they gave me five stents, so it wasn't real bad on that one. Later on, I had open heart. Anyway, so that was the first two near-death experience. But the third near-death experience is unlike, I've never heard anybody else's like this one. First off, it deals with some real mystical, mysterious things that are really no way to explain without a long, detailed story. And I don't know if you have time for that, but it's just, it ties into, I had a naughty palm leaf reading done. Now, people look in this video going to go, what in the heck's a naughty palm leaf? First off, I didn't even know what that was myself. I was in India many times, but I was in India in 2010 and I was staying at this ashram and the guru says, Beer, I want you to go into Pune and I want you to go to this place and I want you to have a naughty palm leaf reading done. And I'm going, I'm not into fortune telling. I'm thinking palm, he's going to read my palm or something. Or he says, no, that's not that. He says, this stuff was, I said, well, what is it? He says, they take your thumbprint, your right thumbprint if you're a man, left if you're a woman. And from your thumbprint, they find these ancient writings on palm leaves, if you took a palm leaf, took all the fronds off it, you just have the heavy part, and then a scribe would write this stuff on it. And it was written 2,500 to 5,000 years ago. And these souls would incarnate in, and those that needed this information would come and find it, and it would be there for them, and they'd find it by thumbprint. And I'm going, hey, come on. I mean, I'm going, I believe in a lot of stuff, and I'm going, okay, this is going to be like a mentalist act when I go there. He says, no. He says, when you go there, he says, don't tell them nothing. Don't tell them your name. Don't, just answer yes or no if they ask you any questions. I go, really? He says, yeah, okay, I can play that game. So I really didn't want to go. I said, I don't believe in these. He says, yes, but they believe in you. Go. I said, okay. So I figured I'm going because the guru said to go. Otherwise, I would have never went. So I show up there. I give my thumbprint. And I didn't know at the time, you give them the thumbprint, it could be 2 weeks, 2 days, 6 months, a year later when they find it. I mean, because apparently they're not all these leaves are at one location. They're like about 20 locations in India. They're in Mumbai and they're in Delhi and they're in Pune and they're, all various cities. They took and divided the bunches up. So if it was a fire or something, nobody would destroy them all. That's what I was told. I'm thinking, I said, well, the guru sent me here. Sounds like he knows what he's talking about. I'll just wait. So I'm just waiting till people come. It could take you months. I go, the guru sent me here. So I sit there. A few hours later, they call me into a little room and they bring in these bundles. I mean, a bundle. It looks like somebody has Venetian blinds. You take the Venetian blinds off and all these things are tied together with strings. And they have these palm leaves that are strung together with a cord. And they come in there and they pick a pile where the people's thumbprints kind of match yours, or very close. Now, apparently, like in astrology, you have like 12 zodiac signs, Pisces, Aries, whatever. Well, you have 108 different patterns of fingerprints, squirrels and I don't know, dots and things. Apparently there's 108 type personalities or something. I have no clue. But apparently they break these things down in even finer groups. So I go in there and I'm thinking, okay, I'm not going to say nothing. All they have is my thumbprint. On the thumbprint, they said put an initial by it, and I put W down there, which is for William, but I never go by William. The only time I go by William is if, sir, you have a right to remain silent. William McDonald. Is that don't? So never use William unless you're in trouble, right? So it's Bill, right? So I figure, okay, we'll just not going to tell him nothing. So I'm sitting there, and he pulls out the bundle. And the thing is, if he asks you a question and you say yes, then he goes to the next question. If you say yes, but as soon as you say no, he just takes that and sets it aside. It's not you. So it can't be like 80% or 70%. It has to be 100%. So finally, after 6, he goes, intuitively, he says, I believe this is yours, the 7th one. I said, okay. That's all. Okay. I'm mildly entertained at this point. And then he says, your name is 4 letters long. So I'm thinking, William's not, but Bill is. So I said, yes. He says, and it starts with B. I go, okay. Right. And he says, your name is Bilil, Bil, he spells it out, right? I go, yeah. And he says, and your father's name was, meaning he's dead. I didn't even know he was dead at the time. I found that out years later. Was the same as yours. Well, I'm Junior. Therefore, my father's name is exactly the same as mine, right? Well, and then he goes, and your mother's name is, and he stumbled over it, is Marcella. This is eventually what he got out, which is, a good Italian name, Marcella. And I thought, well, that's pretty good. That's something that an Indian wouldn't just pull out of their hat for American names, right? I said, yes. And they said, and they go, that was her name. So she's dead too. I go, yes. And then he goes, and your wife's name, and I'm waiting for this. Okay, now we're going to get this. And he goes, your wife's name's Carol. Oh, okay. And she graduated from one of the most prestigious colleges, universities in the country. And I'm thinking, well, she went to University of California, Berkeley. I don't know if that's considered a biggie. It's not Stanford, as I always tell her. It's not Stanford. No, but it's Cal, man. It's Cal Berkeley. Okay. So I said, okay, yes. All right. I'll give her that. And then she goes, you have 2 children, a boy and then a girl. And so he goes this whole list of stuff. And then he says, and your birthday? It's March 16th, 1946. I'm going, well, that's pretty good. Then I'm thinking, did they run my fingerprint through the FBI file or something? I mean, how'd they get that? And then he goes, but we're unsure of the birth time. I said, oh, okay, not perfect. And then he goes, someplace between 110 and 125. We're going to guess, just for the record here, probably splitting the difference. You're born at this time, but between 110 and 125. So what he didn't know was when I was actually born, the doctor wasn't there, and my mother was getting an enema. Just a good story. Pretty crappy, but it's a good story. She's getting an enema, and during the enema, she gives birth to me. My head pops out, and so I'm half in, I'm half out. I'm in a metal can, whatever you call those things, right? What do they call those things? So boom, the pot, right? And they held me in there and waited sent for the doctor because he wanted to get paid for delivery, right? Of course. So by the time the doctor gets there, and of course they cleaned me up, the doctor goes, well, he was told, well, it was between 110 and 125. So he splits the difference. He does the same exact time that these guys did for the birth certificate. So the birth certificate was a guess. These guys were guessing, which was odd. Anyway, so it goes to this whole thing, and he says, your guru's this guy, and a whole bunch of stuff, right? You write books, blah, blah, blah. So I thought that was a reading. There was 40 questions, all yes. So I said, okay, great. That was fun. How's that help me, right? He goes, no. That's not the reading. He says, that's just, so we got your index card. We'll now do your Vedic chart. You give your reading. So 6 hours later, I'm brought upstairs and I'm given this reading. Before I left, the guru instructed me, he says, when you get your reading done, you're supposed to ask them for your worst sin that you ever committed like your worst sin you ever did, right? I mean, something really bad that it's recent, is affecting you today. Okay. Wow, I was going, where that could be. I've seen people coming downstairs from their readings, they couple them from the ashram gave them the same question. They came, burned somebody at stake, cut somebody's head off. I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff, right? I'm going, wow, man, what the heck? Anyway, so they go through the reading. First part of the reading, they tell you everything that brought you to that point in time. And then they go back to a recent lifetime, not your last lifetime, but one that connects you today and connects you to your situation, what's going on in your life now. And so I was taken back to an ashram on Sri Lanka, the island country, and where I was in charge of an ashram, the senior monk, and it was being run by the guru that sent me there. That was his ashram, I was working for him. And my greatest sin that lifetime was I was this beautiful being, run the place, everything was good. But there was a married woman, and I thought she was beautiful, and I said, this is really beautiful. I really love her. No plans, no attack, no words, nothing spoken, nothing done. Just had the thought, it's a beautiful woman. I love her. And the guru picked up on that and cursed my mind, sent me out of the ashram because I was a terrible sin. Oh, God. I thought about a woman I loved. So terrible, right? So I wandered for the rest of that lifetime until I end up in the Ganges River. And the guy's reading the thing, and he says, and we're looking here at your last moments of life. You're down underwater in the Ganges bathing, and there's this great light as you come up out of the water, and Lord Shiva's there. But you can only see Lord Shiva if you're dead, though, right? So Lord Shiva's there, and you turn into a rainbow, and you leave in a rainbow. And the guy goes, we've been reading your charts, and for the last 14, 15 lifetimes before that, every life we've looked at, you've left life as a rainbow. Boom, you're gone, right? So anyway, I think, well, that's a good story. Yeah, it's a good story, right? So then he goes, okay, well, here's the future. So he made these predictions about the future. And he talked about in the future, you're going to have Babaji, basically, or Lord Shiva in disguise or whatever, but you're going to have Babaji going to come to you and bless you and pour sacraments on your, oil and water and whatever, and bless you, and something's going to happen. And I said, yeah, okay, fine. And then you're going to, this time next year, or sometime next year, you're going to go to this Shiva temple in southern India, and it has a hill. When you get there, you're going to look at the hill, and you're going to walk uphill 2 to 4 hours. You're going to walk up this hill. When you get to the top of the hill, in a clearing, sitting around a fire or standing, there'll be a group of the original rishis, the 18 rishis. All the rishis will be waiting for you there. And they won't teach you anything. You'll remember everything. You'll have no questions. You'll know everything. You can answer all your own questions because you won't have any. And I thought, well, that's really a crazy story too. I said, okay, great. So that was, and then they made a whole bunch of other predictions, about all kinds of stuff. Every one of those predictions came true, except for when I was going to die and these other 2 things. So it was like, boy, these things were really accurate, right? I'm going, this is interesting. All right, 2011, I'm having a heart attack in Germany, but I ignore it. Get on an airplane, I fly back to India, go to the ashram. I'm introducing the guru at these big events, several thousand people and stuff. And afterwards, I'm having a heart attack. I collapse. I go to ER. They tell me, you got to leave the country. There's a whole story involved in that and visions and things, but I'm going to take you to the next near-death experience. Just skip ahead all that stuff. Even though they're great stories, you'd have to read a book to catch up with this stuff. So I end up flying back to Sacramento. I collapse at customs, 6 hours paramedics. They put me back on an airplane in Denver and fly me back to Sacramento. If you can imagine, guy having a heart problem, collapses in Denver airport, 6 hours of paramedic, and they let you get back on another airplane to fly to Sacramento. Yeah, and Yeah, and I end up with a blood clot in the lungs. Yeah, that's a surprise. Gee whiz, how'd that happen? All right, so I get to Sacramento. I go see my doctor. I walk into his office, and he sees me in about 2 minutes. He's got a wheelchair. He rolls me down to ER. Next thing you know, they're scheduling open heart surgery for me, quadruple bypass surgery. So I'm 4 days in the hospital trying to get ready, prepare for this because I was too weak. Now, normally with American medical, you go in for heart surgery, 4 days, 5 days, they kick you out of the hospital. You think if you have open heart surgery, you'd be there, 4 or 5 days, they kick you out, right? I mean, that's all your insurance covers. You're good, go home, rest, Well, I'm 4 days before they even operate, and I'm really weak. I'm not doing good at all. Taken by another ambulance to another hospital to be operated on. So I get there the next day. They say, we're going to do this quadruple bypass surgery. And they tell me the details as I'm stark naked. They just put me on a thin sheet that's on a cold metal table to operate on me. 6 o'clock in the morning, you could see your breath in the operating room. I don't know if that's true or not, but I felt at the time I could see my breath. It was that cold. Maybe they don't want bacteria to grow, but all the doctors had like jackets and sweaters on. It was underneath over their stuff, right under it. And so I'm there and I'm going, he goes, you got any questions? I go, yeah, like what's going on? What are you going to do? And this guy, great bedside manner, he goes, well, he says, I'm going to saw or cut. I'm going to rip open your chest. And it shows me this chest stretcher, and I put this chest stretcher, stretch the rib cage, and he's giving me a show and tell with all the equipment, and he's got these clippers, look like lopers, and he's got a saw, and he got all these things. And I'm going, what? I'm looking at all this stuff going, really? And he says, and then I'm going to stop your heart, stop your lungs, and then I'm going to put this, and I'm going to put you on this heart lung machine, and it's going to oxygenate your body. And I go, so you're stopping my heart? Yeah. You're stopping my lungs? He says, then I'm dead. He says, yeah, we're going to kill you first, but don't worry about it. We got you on a machine. As long as there's electricity, ha ha ha. As long as we have electricity, we're okay. I mean, it's like, ha ha. I'm going, well, I said, well, am I going to feel anything? He says, less than 5% of the people feel something when on the heart lung machine, because when you're on that, my anesthesiast, he'll cut back on how much anesthesia he gives you because it's too dangerous. He says, but yeah, he says, over 95, 96% of the people, they don't affect nothing. So I was going to ask him about the other people, but then he says, okay, now count backwards to 100. Next thing I know, boom, there's total darkness. Boom, I am out of my body. Now, you remember I was talking to you yesterday about out-body experiences, when you leave, and it's a whole different thing. This was totally, totally different. This was not an out-of-body experience. This was another body experience, meaning I left the operating room strapped to this table with a thing down my, tube down my throat, and my eyes taped shut. And next thing I know, I am standing in my physical body in southern India, outside a Shiva temple. And the first thought I have, being who I am, my first thought is, do I have clothes on? So I looked down and, oh yeah, I got clothes on. And then, all the things you could think about, like, what am I doing here? I'm in another body. What's going on? No, my first thought is just, do I have clothes on? Anyway, this is me you're dealing with, right? So, and I realized that people are bumping into me, and I could feel the heat. And I'm looking around, and people see me. I see them. I touch them. They touch me. It is not an astral body. It's not a spirit body of any kind. It's not a ghost. It's not a vision. It's actual physical flesh and blood body. And there I am, standing, and I look at that temple and I go, oh, that's that temple. I couldn't even pronounce the name of that temple, but that's the temple, right? It's just like that, because I look and there's a hill and there's a trail going up it. And I'm going, well, I got 8 hours operation. I must have walked 2 to 4 hours uphill, right? So I start walking uphill, and I'm feeling the heat. Once in a while, I keep feeling like hands and metal things in my chest. It's like I could feel the operation kind of pushing it. The stuff was going on, right? It was, I'm separated in my own different body, but I still kind of feel a little attachment. So I go up this hill. I have no idea how long. I'm enjoying the walk. And I get up the top and I look up there and there's 18 rishis. And then I also see the guru that sent me to have the reading. The guy that I stayed at his ashram, he's there. And I'm not surprised. I just walk in and there's a sacred fire going. Some guys are sitting on logs. Some guys are on rocks. Some guys are standing. This guru guy, he was standing. And I walk over and it's like, everything's awakened. It's like, why am I here? Who am I? Who are we? What's the purpose of life? Those questions aren't questions anymore. It's like, oh, wish I could have retained that. But when I'm there in that moment, in that time, in that place, in that dimension, yes, knew it. But when you come back into a material body and a material mind and this dimension, some things you can't bring back. That's my only theory on that. Anyway, so there I am. And I got this life or death situation going on the operating table. And there I am, feeling wonderful. And I'm with these great men. And I look at the guru and he says, you can skip a few beats, but don't give up heart. In other words, you got to stick around, right? And I'm going, really? Oh, okay, I'm in a lot of pain and everything, right? So he goes, skip a few beats, but don't give up heart. So then I'm looking around and all of a sudden, I'm getting another review of some kind. Something's coming. There's like the clouds again. I'm going, wait a minute. Maybe this is a near death. Maybe I'm going to get a past review, right? Something's going on different. But it's like clouds. And then I just see a sea, an ocean, a vastness of faces. Men, women, old, young, dogs, a couple dogs, one or two cats, Asians, blacks, Hispanics, Irishmen, Germans, all kinds of people. And they're all I'm just looking at their eyes. I'm looking at them and their faces, just thousands of them just rolling by on this. So I thought it was kind of odd. And so that's just going on. And so I hear this feminine voice, soft, feminine, I hate to say this, sensual voice, because it's you don't say that about a divine thing, but it's just like this most sensuous, beautiful, tantalizing voice, just like, Bill, you've done everything you could do. You owe nobody nothing. You don't have to do anything. There's no karmic debt here. Just let it go. Let it stop the heart, right? Just let it go. I promise you peace, bliss, joy, greatest love you've ever felt, no pain. You've earned it. Come and rest. Let it go. And so the guru guy goes, no. You can't go. You got to hang around. I go, why? He says, because you got to suffer more pain than you ever had in your life. I promise you that. I go, what? Yeah, I promise you pain. I promise you suffering. But the big reason is, and he points up to all these faces and everything, he says, if you go, none of them will get the gift that you were going to give them. Whether it's a gift of healing, a smile, a laugh, inspiration, a kind act, a story, something. All those people will lose that gift that may change the course of their life, big and small. And I'm going, yeah, but you promised me more pain, more suffering. He says, more than you ever had. He says, before you used to have pain and stuff, and you learned yoga techniques where you could have your teeth drilled, you wouldn't worry about it because you know Novocaine, just drill it, right? No, that was all. You used yoga and you used no more. That's gone. Now you got to learn to handle real pain. And I go, well, that's a great promise. I said, she's promised me bliss, no pain, love, all this stuff. And you're promising me more pain, more suffering? I don't think so. So this battle goes back and forth. And next thing you know, on the operating table, apparently they're doing this paddles, and they hit my body, and I'm feeling boom, and all of a sudden I'm back in this body on the operating table. The other body's gone wherever the other body went. And I feel the coldness of the table on my naked body. And I feel excruciating pain. Pain beyond, more pain I ever felt in my life. So I'm thinking, boy, that promise is already there, man. What the hell's going on here? It's like pain. And I'm feeling everything. And then I'm not unconscious. I'm laying there and I got a tube down my throat so I can't talk. Got my eyes taped shut. And my hands are strapped down, I think. But I couldn't move. And I hear what I thought was the anesthesiologist. And the anesthesiologist goes, "Hey, doc," he says, I think the anesthesia's worn off here. I think he's starting to feel it. And the doctor goes, "Well, we only got another 40 minutes. Let's just keep going." And I'm going, in my mind going, hey, I'm screaming in my mind, "You feel it all?" It's the longest 40 minutes I ever had in my entire life, man. It was like forever. I mean, they're sewing up this, they're closing the rib cage, they're wrapping wires around it, they're stapling. I'm feeling it all. I mean, I'm feeling all the closure, everything that's going on, right? I go, holy Toledo, man. So finally, I come back, things taken out of my throat and everything. And normally 3-4 days, you're out of there. No, I'm there almost 3 weeks more, 5 blood transfusions. I'm not doing good at all. And every time I go to sleep, I'm back in that other body, back on the hillside, having the argument with the guy. And every time I go back, the guru's going, "You could skip a few beats, but don't give up heart." And I keep getting that, and I keep giving the same answer, like, "I don't know, man. I mean, I'm having all this great pain, right?" And I'm at this point after like 3 weeks in the hospital, like, I'm ready to give it up. If that's it, I'm good. I mean, I got family and grandchildren, but you know what? This is not comfortable anymore. This is, I've done enough. So finally, one night, they're taking me down for some procedure, about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And they put me in a gurney, and my bedside phone rings, not cell phone, but, the wired phone, the old-fashioned kind, right? The phone to the hospital bed. And I said, "I got to answer this." They go, No. I said, "I got to answer this." So I answer the phone, and I hear this voice saying, "Bill, this is Gurnath from India." I'm like, yeah, I know so many Gurnaths. He had to identify himself. Like, that's the guru guy, right? So he goes, "You can skip a few beats." He says, "But don't give up heart." I go, "What'd you say?" "You can skip a few beats, but don't give up heart." I go, holy cow, man. That's coming right back at me in real, right? And he says, "I just sent 100 people up to the temple at the ashram here to pray for you and help me, because I told them I was going to heal you. Don't you dare embarrass me." In other words, if you die, it's embarrassing the guru. And it's like, holy cow, man, what's that? So he tells everybody he's going to heal me and then I'm going to embarrass him if I don't get healed, right? So I said, okay. So anyway, so 3-4 days later, I'm getting out of the hospital. And just the day before, there's a Babaji experience here for you. Just a couple of days before, I'm laying in the bed, and all of a sudden I look up at the bed, and it's like there's like a crystal dome of energy that covers the whole bed. It's like there's energy. It's like somebody took a glass bowl and put it over a hamster, and the hamster looks around. I was a hamster looking around this thing. It's like I'm under this dome of energy, like there's little sparks and stuff. I can't see anything outside of it. And at the end of my bed is Babaji, long black hair, beautiful shiny skin, barefoot. Except my Babaji, it's my experience. My Babaji has Levi's on and no shirt, no shoes, and he's reaching over from the bottom of the bed, which is 7 feet away, right? And his hands over the top of my head, pouring oil and water, and he's tapping my head, and he's chanting some language. I had no idea what it was, but it was soothing and loving, and I felt loved. And I'm going, well, you know what? Maybe I'm drugged up. Maybe I'm hallucinating. But this is cool. this is all right. This is one of the predictions. Maybe it was just going to come in a dream state. That's all right. I'll have that. That's cool. I appreciate it. So a couple of days later, I'm home. My adult daughter comes over and she says, "Hey, Dad, did you see David when he came to visit you the other day?" And I go, "No, he didn't come to visit me." "Oh yeah, David, our old neighbor." He says, "Yeah, he came to see you that same day I had that thing happen, right?" I said, "No, I'd remember if he was there." He says, "No, he came into the room and he was standing at the doorway, and he says there was some crazy young Indian guy with no shirt on, a pair of Levi's, with long black hair, chanting some crazy, insane language you didn't understand, and he was pouring crap on your heads." What he said, pouring something on your head, and he says, and he told her he started to laugh and he didn't want to embarrass me, so he left. So then I told my daughter the story. She goes, "Oh my God, he saw Babaji." And I go, "Apparently so." And apparently, with you telling me that, that's a verification for me that what happened was a real experience. So anyway, so that was that near-death experience. There's so much more involved with that. It's just one layer after another layer. It's like the giant onion. And so we can talk about Vietnam. We can talk about the other experiences. We can talk about anything you want at another date, another time. But I think that's probably a big chunk of food there for your people to eat. I try to give them the sweetest part of the meal, the desserts. And it's the experience with Babaji is one of many. I talk about 4 of those on my YouTube channel and on various other interviews, but that's not the only. That's the only ones I'm authorized feel I can share, because not every sacred experience should be or can be shared. There's some things that are just too sacred, or you're not allowed to. So, but these experiences that I shared in my books and things, I've been given dispensation to share these. I was told I was supposed to inspire people, and I share certain stories. But people think that's all my stories, and I got 2,000 of them. But no, it's not all my stories. No, it's a tip of the iceberg. So, being a good Irishman, I'll never run out of stories until I run out of breath. And then, even on my deathbed, I'll be telling the story. So, there you go.
Hmm. Well, I got a saying. Well, there is a saying back where I come from. Let the big dog eat. The entire time I was just entranced in your story, and there was no way I was going to butt in, or ask a question, because I feel like when you're in flow like that, right? Even as a painter or an artist, you let them paint. You let them be the artist, because there's a connection there, and it's beauty. There's a beautiful connection, and to see it like in lifetime, from my perspective, I connected with the entire story. I connected with your experience, and I just want to say thank you for taking the time today to one, tell that entire experience, but share this space with myself and my listeners. So thank you.
I'll tell you what happened here just now as you were talking. Your whole energy was blasting. Beginning was like, yeah, okay. The end of this thing, your energy is pulsating. Your energy is, something happened. You actually had an energy frequency change in the process of listening intently as you were to what I was saying. It was really, notice I never said this to another interviewer, but apparently you're one of the few people that really interviewed me that like vacuum just took it in, and it shows in your energy. Other people watch this. I don't know if it shows on the actual recording, but it's almost like you go out of focus. You kind of went out of focus into this light. And then when you stop talking, it just gradually comes, but it's still glowing. Anyway, just throwing that to you.
Hmm. Well, how can people connect with you? How can they find out more? Because you're definitely coming back on. So I definitely want to talk about a couple other subjects, like the rainbow body, some more Babaji stuff, my experience with just learning about who he is. I read an excerpt today that I have more questions about, that I want to talk to you about on the show. But how can people for right now connect with you?
Well, I'm on Facebook, Rev Bill McDonald. I'm also I got a website, www.revbillmcdonald.com. And if they want to really get in contact with me, if they want to send me an email, Huey, Huey 576 at gmail.com. Huey 576, which was my aircraft number. My Huey was Huey 576. So Huey 576 at gmail.com. I do get tons and tons of email, but I always respond. Eventually, I always respond to everybody, and I always send everybody a prayer. Um, I'm connected with so many people every week. It's just amazing. It's not me, it's my message that touches people. See, you got to separate the ego, got to get the ego out of there. It's like I go out there and I teach workshops. They're not, I'm not going out healing people. I'm teaching people to self-heal. I'm not a healer. It's like saying the waiter that gave you the great meal, cooked, he didn't cook it for you, So I'm just a waiter. I'm just bringing you the message. And people are ready for it. There's a hungry world out there. As you're going to find out, as you start this podcast, you're just starting off, and people will discover your podcast because the energy will keep growing. People will share. I will share my videos on there, and then my people will find and subscribe, and somebody else you'll do, and their followers will share and describe. Eventually, in the foreseeable future, next 2 or 3 years, you're going to be one of the biggies. But the real thing here is, meanwhile, you're getting a university of cosmic knowledge. You're going to get pieces from everybody. Everybody will teach you something that you interview. Some people you got to go, well, this, and some people you got to go, whoa, man, I got to think about that. But everyone will add a layer to you that you didn't have before. It'll make you think. It'll make you dive deeper. And if you can do that to your listeners, then you're actually creating some good karma. You're adding value to this world's energy by providing a vehicle for others to travel on to find their own spiritual enlightening moments. So bless you for that.